Most security tools tell you what's exposed right now, but that's not how real security risk builds up. Real risk accumulates quietly when exposure sticks around, normalizes, and stops getting attention. Today, I want to show you how we think about exposure drift at WatchGate, why it changes even when nothing new happens, and how to actually reason about what the data is telling you. Here's the problem with most dashboards. They're snapshots. You get a list of assets, open ports, maybe vulnerabilities, but no sense of direction. Are things getting better, worse, staying the same? If I ran the same scan every day for a week and nothing changed, most tools would say no new findings. But from a risk perspective, that's not neutral. That's persistence, and persistence matters. That's where exposure drift comes in. Exposure drift isn't about how bad things look today. It's about how your external attack surface behaves over time. Let me show you a real-world example. Yesterday, our exposure drift index was around 58. Today, it's just over 59, as you can see. Now, that's a small increase, but it matters. What's interesting is that no dramatic new exposure showed up, no huge spike, no breach. So why did drift increase? Well, because time passed. And that's the purpose of the exposure drift trend. You see, a few exposures that were previously new crossed a persistence threshold, as you can see here in our primary drift drivers. 8 days, 9 days. So a few exposures that were previously new crossed over 7, 8, 9 days of remaining exposed. They didn't go away. And when exposure doesn't go away, it stops being noise and starts becoming normalized risk typically. So this is the part most tools miss. Exposure that appears and disappears quickly is very different from exposure that quietly sticks around. Drift increase is not just when things get worse, but when things fail to get better. That's why you can see drift go up right here. You'll notice language like exposure is relatively stable or drift is stabilizing right in this section here. That doesn't mean safe. Stable just means the rate of change is low. If you have persistent exposure that never gets addressed, stability can actually mean risk calcifying. Stability tells you how fast things are moving, not whether they're acceptable. That's important. So when drift changes, the right question isn't, like, for example, here, what new thing broke? It's, did something new appear? Did something old persist longer? Did severity weighting change? Did remediation fail to offset aging exposure? So in this case, we can trace the increase down to specific assets, and the exact day counts, which you can see right here in our primary drift driver section. So exposure drift index, severity, time, accumulation over time, how long it's persisting as an exposure. Our primary drift driver point out what is the consequence of the drift index going up, showing persistence over 9 days, and the primary drift trend daily going up, just as a visual to show you and to give you an identifier to look at. So most breaches don't start with something dramatic. They start with something boring that nobody fixes. Drift helps you see that boring risk before it becomes expensive risk. It turns security from a checklist into a behavioral signal. If you only look at what's exposed today, you're always reacting. But if you understand how exposure drifts over time, you can actually get ahead of problems. That's the difference between knowing your attack surface and understanding it.